Welcome to the summary screencast for the HTML links learning module for COMP1002. During this lesson, we looked at using the anchor element to build a variety of functional links in our HTML. During the following screencast, I will show you how to build a well-structured external link and a variety of internal links. Links are used in site navigation, and so we need to have a good understanding of how file paths are written with regards to file location within the site's root directory, which is the top level folder containing your entire website. The following files are available for download on Blackboard. If you wanted to follow along with some of the things that I'll be showing you today, you can download the lesson files under Module 4, right here. I'll also be providing the complete lesson files right here, so you can compare your file with the complete files. If you missed only part of the lesson, maybe you were in class and I went too quickly, you can also download the complete file and compare your files with the ones that I uploaded on Blackboard. So I'll leave that up to you. To save time for the screencast, I've already opened up the entire site directory in Atom, which is my code editor of choice. And I've also opened up the home page for this practical activity in Chrome. Now, what we'll be doing today is repairing a set of links on this mini site so that we have a fully functional main navigation. We'll also be building an external link, and we'll be building a page level navigation. If I click around this site, my spring, summer, and fall links all function and take me to the appropriate file. So right now I'm on the spring page, and the file name up in the bar here is spring.html. If I go to fall, I'm now on fall.html. So what I'm doing is I'm using anchors on every page to connect to other pages in my site directory. So there are a series of broken links, and there are some links missing, but before we get to those, what we're going to do is build an external link. An external link is a very common way you will use the anchor element in web app development and website development. So on the home page, there's a section down on line 26 where I would just like you to start by opening an anchor element. So we use the A tag to open an anchor element. And an anchor element is a paired element, so you also need a closing tag. Now, if I were to say click here within my opening and closing tag and save my file, what happens is I get some text on the home page that just says click here. But if I click here, nothing happens. And the reason for this is the functionality for anchor elements comes from the use of attributes. So we need to include something called the hypertext reference attribute in our opening anchor tag to make our link functional. It's href. And then you would build your path inside of the double quotes, so as the value for this attribute. I don't have a link for you to click on, so if you want to grab any old link, I'm going to just search Canada's Four Seasons in Google. Any old external link will do. And I'm going to grab the entire address from the address bar. Copy that and paste that in for the value of your hypertext reference. This is what we call an absolute path. Absolute paths have all of the necessary information for you to navigate to that location from wherever you are on the web. So you have the scheme, which is the first section. You have the domain, tripsavvy.com, and then depending on where this file sits in this website's directory system, you might have a directory name here, or you might just have the file name itself. So you can get to this link from wherever on the internet so long as all of the pieces are included. So if I save my changes and refresh the page in the browser, now my text is purple and underlined. If you've never been to this link, it will be blue and underlined. And if I click here, I'm taken to the page that I linked to. At its very basic core here, this is an external link, but when building external links, you want to include as much information as possible. So you also want to include something called the title attribute. And we've looked at the title attribute before. It's a global attribute that adds a little bit more meaning to the element. A screen reader might read this out to the user. So for the title, you want to craft something that explains what will happen when a user clicks on the link. In this case, we might say, go to Trip Savvy article about Canada's 4 seasons. And instead of click here for the anchor text content, you want to be as descriptive as possible while also being concise. So you might say 4 seasons of Canada on Trip Savvy. This way, if a user is navigating, visually navigating a page, and they see this text, 4 seasons of Canada on Trip Savvy, that is underlined or bolded or otherwise differentiated from the rest of the text, they will have an idea that this is a link that goes to this place. So if they click here, they're expecting a page about the 4 seasons of Canada on an external site called Trip Savvy. And there's a third attribute we want to include with our anchor elements when they're external links only, and that's called the rel attribute. Rel stands for relationship. And the relationship of this link to the rest of the page is that it's external. So it's a good idea to indicate that a link goes off-site when clicked, when it's an external link, because certain assistive devices will pick up on this, and there might be some additional functionality in their devices that helps the user navigate the page, and maybe they can make a different choice. Maybe they don't want to go off-site. Another reason we want to include this attribute is for search bots crawling the page, because they also use your anchor elements on your website to find all of the pages that are included in your web directory. So if we indicate that this is external, non-sighted users like bots and people who are not sighted or not navigating the web in that fashion will have an idea of what will happen when they click on this link. And this is great for SEO purposes if you build a really good anchor element, because now we have 4 seasons in Canada, 4 seasons Canada, Canada's 4 seasons, 4 seasons of Canada, 3 different times in one element. And the site is about the 4 seasons, which is in a heading element. So a search engine will notice that this keyword is being used in important elements on the page and will hopefully give it a boost in the rankings. And so that is your basic external link. You need to include the scheme and the domain if you're pointing to somewhere else, because we need to know how to get there from wherever. This page is not included in your directory on your site, so we can't use a relative link here, or a relative path. Now let's look at some relative paths. On our site, we have a page for every season, but in the main navigation on all pages, there is no link right now to the winter page. So what we're going to do is build out that link in the navigation And this is around line 20. To speed things up a little bit for you, I'm just going to copy the above list item, and we will be looking at unordered lists and list items later in the course. But notice that this is a basic anchor element. We have a hypertext reference. The element has some text content, but we're missing a title element here, or sorry, a title attribute. So what you want to do first is we're going to rename this from fall to winter, because there is a winter page all ready to go. And we're going to change the text node to winter. So now that link will make sense. You can use the title attribute on all of your anchor elements, not just the external anchors. And you want to use it in the same fashion for your internal links. So if I want to put a title on all of these anchors that are in my main navigation, I would say go to homepage. Go to spring page, and so on. So I will leave it at that, but you will want to add these for all of your links. If I save this as it is and refresh my homepage, now I see that there is a winter tab in my navigation. If I click on winter, I'm taken to a winter page. Every other page, including the winter page itself, does not have that link in the header. So we want to add this page to all of the other navigations on all of the other pages. That would be the first step in correcting the broken links on the site. And you've probably noticed that these other pages don't have any styling either. So we want to fix the path, or add the path in this case, to the style sheet on all of the other pages. So what I'm going to do is just copy winter.html from my homepage, and ideally you'll have a title attribute for this. And I'm going to paste it in on every other season's page. It's important that the navigation of your site is the exact same on every page. So you want the same links with the same attributes on every single page. Because if a user gets to a page and then the global navigation is different than what they are used to seeing on other pages, they might not understand that they're still on the same site. They might not be able to get to all of the pages they need to get to from where they are, and it's bad usability. I'm just checking to make sure I've got them all in. Great. And before we go back and preview this in the browser, I'm just going to also add something called the link element to the rest of the pages. Now the link element in this case is used to link to our style sheet using both the hypertext reference attribute, so the same attribute we use with the anchor elements, as well as the relationship attribute. We have to indicate that the style sheet is in fact a style sheet. So all I'm doing now is pasting that in for every season page. And remember to save these as you go. Now if I refresh my site in the browser and click through my navigation, I can get to every seasons page from every other season page now, no matter where I start navigating. So if I'm on the summer page and I want to go to the spring page, if I click on that link, it takes me to the spring page. Now there's another page here, and I want us to have a look at this as well, because you will often run into pages that are included in other directories. If I close these up, the links directory itself, that is our root directory in this case. And directly inside of the root directory are all of the season pages as well as the home page. if I want to navigate to any of these pages from where I am, I simply need to type in the file name and the file extension. And the reason for this, the reason for using a relative path in this case, is that these all exist within my directory system so that I can get to them without including a scheme or domain name, because the scheme and the domain name is going to be the same from where I'm located. So it's easier for me not to include an absolute URL in this case. This changes a little bit when I want to navigate to a different page or link to a different script or style sheet that's included inside of a different directory. The link element, I'm on the winter page, but this is the same on all of the pages. The link element links to our style sheet, which is located in the CSS directory. So I can't simply link to style.css as my hypertext reference, since there's no style.css located directly inside of the root directory. I need to write a path to the style.css, which includes the directory CSS. This path is like a set of directions. It says go to the CSS directory and pull out style.css. You can also think of this as sort of like you're a game piece moving through a board. If I'm inside of a directory, let's go ahead and edit the privacy policy page. Maybe we should link to it first. Okay, so you know it exists. Back in the home page, down in the footer, let's link to the privacy policy page using an anchor element. And because we have to go inside of a directory, just like with our CSS file, I'll begin by indicating go into the legal directory and find privacy policy. And we'll write a title attribute for this as well. Go to the privacy policy page. And then you want to name this according to what it actually is. So this is our privacy policy. You could put read our privacy policy here if you wanted to. And now if I refresh the page and head down to the footer and click on this link, I'm taken to the privacy policy page. However, this page has many broken links. So these links are here for all of the seasons, but if I click on them, I don't go anywhere. Also, this page does not have any styling. So let's have a look at how paths change depending on your location. So now I'm editing the privacy policy.html page. And what I'll do first is fix my style sheet hypertext reference. Right now, what this is saying is from where you're located, look for the CSS directory and then go into that directory and find style.css. But because we're now in the legal directory, there is no CSS directory where I am. What I need to do is move the game piece out of the legal directory first and then locate style.css. So in this case, I would say come out of legal, go into CSS. And the syntax to do that is .. // So by including this as a part of your relative path, you're saying come out of where you are, and then wherever you end up at that point, look for the CSS directory and find style.css. So if I save that and refresh privacy policy, I now get the same styling as the rest of the document, or the rest of the website. Our links for our navigation are also broken. each of these links is saying from where you're located, find index.html, find spring.html. But unfortunately, those pages do not exist inside of the directory where we are located, since we're on the privacy policy page and it's inside of the legal directory. So we need to do this, a similar thing to these paths as we did with the CSS path. We need to say, come out of the directory you're in, and then look for index.html. So if I include that syntax for each of these relative paths and save my work, I'm able to find my way around. So back to privacy policy, so I can get to the winter page from here. I can get to the summer page. And it's just adding that little bit of syntax. That's .. Come out of the directory you're in and go into this. Or you don't necessarily have to go into another directory. Just find the following file. So now that this page works, I want to show you page level navigation. This is the last part of this learning module. Page level navigation enables the user to click on a link, and then the page will adjust to where that link goes to on the page. And the way we do this is use the ID attribute. The ID attribute, if you remember from the past few lessons, is completely unique. You can only use it once. So you can use the ID attribute multiple times on a page, but the value for that ID attribute must be unique on the page. So if I had an ID, if I had a, well, I do have a main element with the ID of content. This is the only element that can have the ID of content on the page. But my H2, I could give this an ID if I needed to, so long as the value for that ID is different than content, and so forth. This really enables the functionality of being able to link to this particular location because it's unique. So we're going to build a to top button on this page. Down on line 38, if you want to start by opening up an anchor element, and we'll say to top of page and close your element. The link will look something like this. First off, you need to decide where you're linking to. And maybe in this case, I don't need the user to go all the way back up to the very top of the page. Maybe just the top of the main content is okay. So I'm going to say content as my hypertext reference. But I also need to include a hash, which indicates that this is an ID. So this anchor points to an element with the ID of content now. If I click on this link now, it takes me to the privacy policy heading. And that is because it is right inside of the element with the ID of content. Yes, content. You can also use this page, this is called page level navigation. You can also use this when navigating from another section of the website. If I wanted to link to use of personal information, this heading here, which should be closed with an H2 tag, then I can do this from any page that's in my site directory. I could say, I'm going to just copy this value first so I don't have to come back here. And maybe from the home page, I want to include another link in the footer. That points to this section. So give that a good name. Give that a nice text node value, use of personal information. So if I linked that from my home page, it's not going to go anywhere. Not yet. And the reason for that is when I click the link, the browser is looking for an element on this page where I currently am with the ID of personal information. So what I need to include as a part of my path is the path to where this section exists, the path to the page where this section exists. So legal, go into the legal directory and pull up privacy policy. And no / at the end. You just append hash personal information to the end of the relative path. So I'm back home now. If I click on this link, it takes me to the other page, to the privacy policy page, to the particular section that I want to link to. Have a look up at the address bar. This is now a part of your path in the address bar up at the top. And so those are the 3 different anchors we learned how to build in this class. We looked at navigating in and out of directories. We looked at building page level navigation using the ID attribute. And we also looked at building well-structured external anchors. You want to include the title attribute on all of your anchors, regardless of where they go. And for external anchors, you want to also include the relationship attribute. So rel equals external. Thank you for listening.